At 88, Morgan Freeman, the legendary voice of cinema and beloved Hollywood icon, faces a tragedy no one expected. Behind the calm, wise smile and the decades of unforgettable performances lies a story of loss, pain, and personal struggle. From health battles to the challenges that time brings, Freeman's journey has taken a heartbreaking turn. Fans worldwide are shocked, heartbroken, and searching for answers. This is more than a story of fame. It's the human side of a legend confronting life's cruel realities. Morgan Freeman's story begins in the quiet heat of Memphis, Tennessee, on June 4, 1937, as the youngest of 5 children born into a world that gave very little and demanded a lot. His parents, struggling to make ends meet, worked tirelessly. His mother scrubbing floors and serving as a nurse's aide, his father trying to keep a small barber shop afloat. Money was scarce and the hunger was constant. Freeman would later recall nights when the emptiness in his stomach felt heavier than the blanket on his back. Nights when silence and scarcity became his closest companions. Life offered no guarantees, and security was a fragile illusion. At a young age, Morgan was left behind in Charleston, Mississippi, in the care of his grandmother, while his parents moved north in search of opportunity. The house where he lived was a mix of refuge and confinement, creaking under the southern sun, with a porch that became both his vantage point to the world and the stage of his solitude. He carried a battered suitcase from town to town, moving with the currents of his family's shifting fortunes. Each new school meant unfamiliar faces, new rules, and whispered reminders that he was different, poorer, smaller, left behind. Freeman later reflected that he learned early what it meant to be abandoned, and that cruel knowledge hardened into the quiet steel that would one day define him. End of Danger and Discretion, Book 1. Written by W. Growing up as a black boy in the segregated South of the 1940s and 1950s meant that every street corner, every classroom, carried the invisible weight of inequality. Books were old and torn, schools were underfunded, and the message was clear: children like him were not expected to rise. He felt the sting of exclusion daily, walking past whites-only signs, learning that the world had already decided his place before he had a chance to claim it. Yet, even amid the harsh soil of Mississippi, a spark flickered. At 9 years old, Morgan stepped onto a school stage for the first time. The audience was small, the applause scattered. But in that brief moment, the loneliness cracked, and he felt seen. Acting became more than play. It became proof that his presence mattered, a whisper that he had something to give the world. Life continued to test him. The death of his father in 1961 left him with a silence deeper than hunger, a reminder that even family could be taken in an instant. The poverty, the segregation, the constant absence, and the losses became the raw material of Freeman's character. Each wound carved into him a quiet dignity, empathy, and endurance. He learned that survival was not just about staying alive. It was about showing up even when the world offered no applause. From the creaking porch of Mississippi to the dusty roads of childhood, Freeman's humble beginnings forged the man whose voice would one day steady millions and whose presence would leave an indelible mark on generations. This is the story of a boy left behind, shaped by hunger, silence, and injustice, who carried those scars forward and transformed them into a life of resilience, purpose, and eventual greatness. Morgan Freeman's journey from the dusty roads of Mississippi to the glittering lights of Hollywood was anything but smooth. After growing up with hunger, silence, and the weight of segregation, he carried with him a quiet steel that would become his defining strength. Yet leaving the South did not instantly open doors. Barely out of high school, with no college funds and no safety net, he enlisted in the United States Air Force. The military offered discipline and order, and for a time he dreamed of flying planes, of controlling something tangible in a world that had often felt chaotic. But Freeman quickly realized that his calling was not to war or machines, but to art. "I realized I wasn't meant to kill," he would later admit. He left the Air Force and stepped into uncertainty, trading stability for a dream that offered nothing guaranteed but the chance to be himself. Los Angeles was merciless. Freeman enrolled at the Pasadena Playhouse to study acting, but tuition alone was a burden. He survived by working small jobs, clerical work, typing by day, rehearsing by night, scraping by on meager meals. Some nights, he ate little more than stale bread and coffee, so thin that even the water in it felt like a shadow of nourishment. He often fell asleep on hard wooden chairs, exhaustion competing with hunger, yet refusing to surrender. Every audition was a test of endurance, every rejection a reminder that the world was not ready to notice him. His skin color, the very tone that would one day define his gravitas, often closed doors before he even spoke. Casting directors would dismiss him outright. Sometimes they would not even meet his eyes. He endured these humiliations, holding on to a simple, unspoken vow. I'll starve if I must, but I will act. Throughout the 1960s and 70s, Freeman drifted from Los Angeles to New York and San Francisco, chasing any opportunity to be seen. In San Francisco, he danced in chorus lines, sweating under stage lights for applause that barely covered the rent. In New York, he waited in endless audition lines, hearing no after no, feeling the weight of invisibility pressing down. It was grueling, and there were nights when the temptation to give up whispered softly in his ear. But he kept moving, fueled by a spark lit years before on that school stage in Mississippi, where he first realized that acting was proof of presence, of existence, of being seen. Freeman's first breaks came slowly, quietly, in small television roles. He appeared on soap operas like Another World and joined the educational series The Electric Company. These roles offered survival more than recognition, yet each part, each line, was a brick in the foundation of his future. Theater became his sanctuary. In small theaters across the country, Freeman delivered performances that drew quiet ovations from audiences who appreciated the depth of his talent. He honed his craft in plays such as Coriolanus and The Gospel at Colonus, building a reputation in the shadows of Hollywood glare. Recognition was not instant, but he learned that endurance mattered more than speed, that every rejected audition, every empty paycheck, every lonely night was shaping him into the actor he was destined to become. By the time he was 39 and 86, Freeman had weathered 2 decades of struggle, rejection, and obscurity. He was building his reputation brick by brick, unseen by the world but known to those who cared to look closely. And then, in 1987, at the age of 50, destiny finally knocked. Freeman's performance in Street Smart as a volatile, magnetic pimp earned him an Academy Award nomination and stunned the industry. Suddenly, the man who had been overlooked for decades became impossible to ignore. Critics, previously dismissive, were forced to acknowledge his power. Hollywood had finally caught up to his talent. But this recognition brought new trials, the expectations, the scrutiny, the pressure to perform not just as an actor, but as a symbol of dignity, resilience, and humanity. From that point on, Freeman's presence became inseparable from the calm, commanding voice that would carry generations. In Driving Miss Daisy, 1989, he embodied the quiet grace of a chauffeur, teaching the world that kindness was a power unto itself. In The Shawshank Redemption, 1994, his narration turned a story of despair into a hymn of hope. Every role was more than a character. It was a lesson in endurance and humanity. Freeman himself said, "Hope is a dangerous thing, but without it, you're already dead." In $1 Million Baby, 2004, he portrayed a mentor forged in hardship, earning the Oscar that confirmed the world's recognition of his mastery. His portrayal of Nelson Mandela in Invictus, 2009, was not just acting, it was embodiment, a living testament to the weight of leadership, forgiveness, and humanity. Yet, even amid the applause, Freeman endured the silent toll of this success. Hours were long, schedules punishing, and his body, tested by decades of hardship, often resisted the demands of relentless filming. The man whose voice had comforted millions faced fatigue, injury, and the invisible pressure of expectation. But Freeman's resilience was never about ease. It was about rising repeatedly, about meeting each scene with discipline, about turning pain into performance and endurance into art. By the time Freeman reached the 2000s, he had built a career that defied the timelines of Hollywood. He had transformed decades of obscurity into a stage where his talent could shine unbounded. Success finally was not sudden. It was the culmination of years of rejection, hunger, quiet nights, and endless rehearsal. The boy from Mississippi had become a legend, not in spite of the struggle, but because of it. His rise was proof that greatness has no deadline, that perseverance shapes destiny, and that every struggle, every rejection, every lonely night could ultimately become the soil from which a towering legacy grows. Morgan Freeman's Hollywood breakthrough was not the start of a career. It was the acknowledgement of a lifetime's work, the moment when patience, endurance, and unwavering dedication finally demanded the world's attention. From the porches of Mississippi to the silver screens of Hollywood, he proved that dreams are worth chasing, no matter how long it takes, and that the measure of greatness is not only in talent, but in the relentless pursuit of it, even when the odds are stacked against you. Morgan Freeman's life, despite the fame, accolades, and worldwide recognition, has been marked by an extraordinary series of personal tragedies and physical challenges that tested him in ways no script could ever capture. While the world saw his calm, commanding presence on screen, few could imagine the storm that raged behind the scenes, shaping him into the resilient man he became. His story is not just one of cinematic triumph. It is also a story of surviving heartbreak, loss, and a body that would betray him in unexpected ways. Freeman's private life has often been as challenging as his childhood. In 1967, at the age of 30, he married Jeanette Adair Bradshaw. At the time, Freeman was still struggling to find his footing in Hollywood, navigating the uncertainty of auditions, theater work, and small television roles. Despite his lack of stability, he saw Jeanette as an anchor, a partner to share the long, lonely journey. He embraced her daughter Dina as his own, while also caring for his son, Alonzo, from a previous relationship. In those early years, the home was modest, filled with simple meals of beans, bread, and occasional meat. Laughter echoed, but so did the quiet weight of absence. Freeman's nights were spent chasing roles, rehearsing lines under dim lights, performing in plays that offered little pay but demanded everything. Jeanette bore her own burdens, watching a husband disappear nightly into rehearsals and auditions. Returning exhausted and distant, the silence at the dinner table grew heavier than the food they shared. Slowly, the warmth that had held them together cooled into invisible distance. By 1979, after 12 years, the marriage collapsed. Freeman was 42, on the cusp of career recognition, but his personal life lay in ruins. Divorce was not merely the end of a union. It was the dismantling of a sanctuary, leaving scars that no standing ovation could erase. He would later reflect that the slow erosion of togetherness, the relentless clash between dream and duty, had cost him dearly. Yet, this experience taught him a difficult truth. Love, even when sincere, is not enough to withstand the pressures of ambition and absence. Freeman remarried in 1984 to Myrna Coley Lee, a costume designer whose artistry extended beyond the stage and into the quiet strength she offered him. At 47, Freeman found in Myrna the partnership he had long sought, a home where dreams and devotion could coexist. Together, they created a household grounded in Mississippi soil, far from Hollywood glitter, fostering stability and connection for Freeman's children, both biological and stepchildren. Dinners around a long wooden table, evenings on a wraparound porch, holidays filled with warmth and the laughter of grandchildren. All of this offered a sense of permanence that had eluded Freeman for decades. For a time, it seemed he had finally found safe harbor. Yet even in these luminous days, the pressures of career, fame, and the demands of an industry that never slept began to gnaw at the edges of this sanctuary. The late 1990s and early 2000s brought Freeman's career to new heights. Awards, iconic roles, and the global recognition that had once seemed impossible became his reality. But with every step upward, the distance at home widened. Stage, screen, and narration demanded long hours, leaving Myrna to shoulder nights filled with empty chairs at the dinner table and holidays that felt heavy with absence. Though Freeman loved deeply, his career's relentless pace created an invisible fault line. By 2010, after 26 years, their marriage ended, leaving scars that extended far beyond financial settlements. Freeman later admitted that the collapse of this union carried a personal cost that even wealth and recognition could not assuage. The quiet erosion of family and intimacy, echoes of the isolation he had once known as a child, returned in adulthood with cruel force. As if personal heartbreak were not enough, Freeman's life took a darker, more immediate turn with the tragic death of his step-granddaughter, Adina Hines, in 2015. At just 33 years old, Adina was radiant, full of promise and a constant presence in Freeman's life. Her death, in a violent act of street crime in New York, was a blow that left him hollow. This was not just loss, it was a wound that pierced the soul, a grief no performance, no award, no public adulation could ever heal. Freeman spoke of her as a star that would forever shine in his heart, but the emptiness her absence left haunted his Mississippi estate, transforming halls once filled with laughter into spaces of silence and reflection. The grief was profound and enduring, a reminder that even those who seem untouchable are still human, susceptible to loss that leaves no public record, only private sorrow. Physical challenges soon compounded his emotional trials. In 2008, Freeman survived a catastrophic car accident near Ruleville, Mississippi, a night that could have ended his life. His car veered off the highway, flipping multiple times. The metal screamed, glass shattered, and he was trapped in the wreckage. Emergency crews worked tirelessly, pulling him free with hydraulic tools. His left arm, elbow, and shoulder were shattered, nerves torn beyond repair, requiring 4 hours of surgery to reconstruct. While he survived, the injuries left permanent scars. His left hand remained partially paralyzed, and he developed fibromyalgia, a chronic nerve condition that delivered constant, burning pain. Tasks once simple became arduous. He could no longer pilot planes or navigate long drives with ease. Even walking, lifting, or holding scripts brought reminders of mortality and vulnerability. Pain became a daily companion, an uninvited partner in his life, shaping every decision, every action, every performance. Despite this, Freeman refused to retreat. He adapted, retraining his body, learning to compensate, and pushing forward with an iron will. Memory and mental endurance, too, became tests of their own. Age and long hours of work began to blur the edges of recall. Lines once memorized easily now demanded extra rehearsal. Small daily tasks became challenges. Yet Freeman approached these struggles with the same quiet determination that had carried him from Mississippi to Hollywood. He acknowledged, "I suffer pain every single day," but spoke it as fact, not complaint. He turned limitations into a testament of resilience, proving that strength is not the absence of suffering, but the courage to continue in its presence. Even as these trials accumulated, Freeman remained active in the world, embracing his work, his philanthropy, and his passions. He managed a sprawling Mississippi estate with a bee sanctuary, cultivated the Ground Zero Blues Club, and co-owned Revelations Entertainment. His vehicles, from a Corvette to a private aircraft, became tools of freedom rather than symbols of opulence. He continued to act, narrate, and speak, lending his voice to projects that ranged from Hollywood films to global events like the FIFA World Cup. Each day, every performance, every public appearance was a silent victory over the body that betrayed him, over grief that threatened to overwhelm, and over the relentless march of time itself. Morgan Freeman's life at 81 is a remarkable story not just of cinematic greatness, but of endurance through grief, loss, and physical limitation. He has experienced hunger, abandonment, broken marriages, the violent death of a loved one, catastrophic injury, chronic pain, and the creeping limitations of age. Each trial has left scars, some visible, many invisible, yet through it all he has continued to give, to perform, and to embody resilience. The voice that guided generations through despair and hope is not merely a tool of art. It is a testament to a life lived with courage in the face of relentless adversity. Through these personal tragedies and physical challenges, Freeman has demonstrated that greatness is not measured by accolades, awards, or fame. It is measured by the ability to endure, to continue, to rise each day despite the burdens of body, heart, and soul. He has transformed suffering into strength, absence into empathy, and grief into wisdom. His story is a reminder that even the most luminous stars walk through shadows, that resilience is forged in the crucible of life's cruelest moments, and that the human spirit, tested again and again, can continue to shine, scarred but unbroken. Morgan Freeman's journey is not merely that of an actor. It is the story of a man who survived hunger, heartbreak, and the relentless trials of body and spirit. His life exemplifies endurance. His legacy is carved not only in roles and accolades, but in the quiet courage with which he has faced suffering. At 88, Freeman stands as a monument to human perseverance, a living proof that even in the face of overwhelming tragedy, dignity, strength, and grace are not only possible, they are enduring. Morgan Freeman's legacy stretches far beyond the silver screen, reaching into the hearts of audiences, the culture of cinema, and the communities he has dedicated himself to throughout his life. While many know him as the commanding presence in films like The Shawshank Redemption, $1 Million Baby, and Invictus, his impact is equally profound off-screen, where his choices reveal a man deeply committed to leaving the world better than he found it. At 88, Freeman embodies not just achievement in acting, but the idea that influence is measured by how one touches the lives of others, not merely by the number of awards on a shelf. Even from the earliest days of his career, Freeman's humility and awareness of life's fragility shaped his outlook. He never forgot the hunger of his childhood in Mississippi, the silence of nights when he was left behind, or the injustice he witnessed growing up in a segregated South. Those experiences instilled in him a deep sense of responsibility. For Freeman, success was not only about personal fulfillment. It was a tool to uplift others, to amplify voices, and to provide opportunities where none had existed. This understanding would guide both his creative choices and his philanthropic efforts. One of the most significant expressions of Freeman's legacy is his dedication to education. In 1991, he founded the Tallahatchie River Foundation, a project focused on improving literacy in Mississippi, particularly among children who faced the same obstacles Freeman knew so intimately. The foundation provides books, educational programs, and mentorship, nurturing a generation that might otherwise grow up without the encouragement or resources that can shape a future. Freeman's belief in education as a transformative force reflects a continuity of his own life story. He understood that knowledge could lift people out of hardship and give them tools to create their own destinies. Freeman's philanthropy has not stopped with literacy. In 2004, he established the Grenada Relief Fund to assist communities devastated by hurricanes in the Caribbean, demonstrating an understanding that crises demand immediate, hands-on response. His giving has always combined foresight with tangible action. He invests in projects that create lasting impact, whether by funding scholarships, supporting disaster relief, or providing resources for cultural preservation. In 2025, to mark his 88th birthday, Freeman committed $11 million to create a global animal sanctuary network for homeless dogs and wildlife. For him, giving is not an act of showmanship. It is planting seeds for a future he may never see fully, trusting that others will carry forward the benefits of his vision. Beyond philanthropy, Freeman has remained deeply engaged with the arts and culture that shaped him. He co-owns the Ground Zero Blues Club in Clarksdale, Mississippi, a living tribute to the Delta Blues. Here, the music that once flowed through his childhood streets is kept alive, a bridge connecting past and present, and offering a platform for emerging musicians. Similarly, Revelations Entertainment, the production company he co-founded, has allowed him to tell stories with integrity, producing content that informs, inspires, and entertains while reflecting the depth of human experience. Freeman's choices as a producer and storyteller illustrate a rare combination of wisdom and intentionality. He uses his platform to elevate, not merely to spotlight himself. His influence also extends into mentorship and guidance. Freeman has consistently embraced the responsibility of sharing knowledge with younger generations of actors, narrators, and creators. Whether through formal instruction, informal conversations, or leading by example, he demonstrates that true mastery is inseparable from humility and generosity. The respect he commands in Hollywood is rooted not only in talent, but in integrity, the ability to work tirelessly, to endure setbacks, and to remain grounded despite extraordinary success. At home in Mississippi, his legacy is physical as well as spiritual. Freeman's 124-acre estate is not a show of wealth, but a sanctuary. The land, shaded by oak trees with its beehives and gardens, reflects a philosophy of stewardship, a commitment to life, and a respect for the natural world. His choices here are deliberate, teaching that real value lies not in accumulation but in care, presence, and the cultivation of beauty that nurtures others. Ultimately, Morgan Freeman's enduring influence is felt not only in the stories he has told on screen, nor in the awards he has won, but in the countless lives he has touched directly and indirectly. From the children inspired by his literacy programs to the artists empowered by his cultural initiatives, from audiences comforted by his voice to communities sustained by his generosity, Freeman's impact is profound and multifaceted. His life exemplifies that legacy is not measured by fame alone, but by service, compassion, and the ability to inspire hope and resilience in others. Even at 88, Freeman continues to shape the world, proving that the mark of a truly great life lies not in what you take, but in what you leave behind. A beacon of endurance, wisdom, and generosity that will outlast even the brightest spotlight.